Her name is Alice Cain, and she's running for Maryland State Delegate District 30A. Alice, thank you so much for accepting our interview. I appreciate
pleasure.
it. Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph,
So,
for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the meat and bones of the interview, let's talk about where 30A is, so that way everybody knows who your constituents are going to be. What does 30A cover in Maryland?
Oh, well, it is Annapolis, and then part of Arnold over the bridge, and part of Sliver of Edgewater.
Sliver of Edgewater. Okay, great.
Yep.
So how's the
And
race?
the boundaries are all online if
Yeah.
voters want to look up exactly where you are.
Do you have like a link on your website where people can?
I'll put that on. I do have the link.
Good idea. There you go.
So, thank you.
So I'm already helping you out. So let's talk a little bit about being a Maryland State Delegate. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So what have you done over the past couple of years? What's your experience? And then what was that moment, that aha moment where I was like, where you were like, hey, I got to throw my hat in the race?
That's a great question. It was a series of moments. Over the past year and a half or so, I have seen so much that I care about under attack from the Oval Office on down, whether it's public education, whether it's the Bay, the environment, the air we breathe, the escalation in gun violence as the NRA strengthens its grip on lawmakers in DC. I just feel like we can do so much better as a country than we're doing right now. Seeing the march in Charlottesville, seeing the attack on DACA and trying to send dreamers out of the country, and then more recently seeing parents separated from their children at the border. As a mother, I can't even imagine the anguish, and that being done in the name of our country is just,
And according to Jeff Sessions, under the name of the Bible.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And so it is things like that, just day after day, week after week, month after month, that I think I finally just had it up to here and said, I want to be part of the solution, and I don't want that agenda to get any traction in Maryland. The seat I'm running for is currently held by Herb McMillan, who's a Republican, and who I disagree with on a lot of issues. Right. And so part of this is trying to bring that change to the State House. And part of it is feeling like what I have been doing over the past 30 years. I started as a teacher in a GED program, and I had students, it's all low-income students. Some of them were homeless. A lot of them were immigrants and refugees with language barriers, who had not finished school in their home country. I had students who had dropped out, were working minimum wage jobs, trying to support a family and just not getting by. And they were all working so hard and doing everything they could to get the GED, to get that piece of paper that would open the door to the next step for their dreams. And I saw a system, the adult literacy system, that really just felt like it was giving them crumbs.
Right.
And that they did not have a fair shot at the future that they wanted. And so I got mad and I decided to get involved in policy and trying to change the system. And so I went to work on Capitol Hill. I worked for Senator Paul Simon, who was a champion of adult literacy, helped pass the National Literacy Act, which provided a much greater investment, from everything from family literacy, adult literacy, prison literacy, library literacy, to really help what was then 27 million Americans struggling like my students to get the support they needed. And that taste of being able to do something that really mattered in people's lives, I saw how policy could be a tool for real change. And so I was hooked. Right. That was almost 30 years ago. It was 1989. Or I guess 1990 that we finally got it across the finish line. And so I stayed and worked on Capitol Hill. I worked in the Senate for 6 years, on the Education Committee, in the House for 6 years, for the chair of the committee, who was a very close ally of President Obama on all kinds of legislation. did a lot of good. I've worked at nonprofits, from the Children's Defense Fund, organizing parents and grandparents and faith leaders on behalf of low-income kids and kids of color across the country. And I've learned a lot from doing that. I currently work at a nonprofit founded by public school teachers that organizes teachers, and a lot of what we do is fight the Trump agenda and the Betsy DeVos agenda every day. Something else. Right now we're really focused on fighting her efforts to arm classroom teachers and to get teacher voice and parent voice and student voice into those conversations with her and Jeff Sessions, because they're not invited, they're not at the table. So we're finding ways to at least get them the information they need. But what I've learned from all of that work is how to get things done in the legislature. I know how to take a good idea and turn it into a bill. I know how to build a coalition and work across the aisle, as old-fashioned as that sounds these days, to get something passed. And I know how to then use the budget and appropriations process to get it funded, because a lot of bills pass that never get funded. So it's, just a piece of paper. And so I know how to do that. And I feel like what I've done, I've worked in education policy and healthcare policy, but I know how to use that process to apply to whether it's the environment or gun control or other issues. So many issues right now that are top of mind. I don't want to just be a long list candidate, but I know how to do this. And I feel like my values are very aligned with the voters in this district. When I knock on doors, people want equality, fairness, unity, civility, decency, just, all the things.
Normal things that you would expect in America, right?
That just seem missing from our political process right now. And people who are in it for the common good, who believe we're all in this together and we need to look out for each other, and that government can be a force for good and for helping people, not, for enriching themselves. And so it really was, ultimately, I know this is a very long answer to a short question, but it really was just, trying to be the change that I think we need right now. And a small piece of it, but meaningful piece of it, is also, I do believe we need more women in public service and in our legislature. The delegation in Arundel County is only 30-odd% female, and we're a lot more of the population.
There's a lot more women than there are men.
And I think, so I have my professional experience, but I also have my mom experience. I have two kids who've been in our local public schools for 9 years now. I've been, sitting in PTA meetings, and I'm on the Annapolis Education Commission. So I spend time in all of our local public schools, and I see the challenges. I see how hard our teachers and administrators are working. I see a system that is not equipping them for success a lot of the time. And they are, it's sort of like my students in the GED program. They're giving it everything they've got,
and they're not getting a lot back.
But they're not. We have $500 million a year that was supposed to go to our schools when the casino gaming legislation passed. That is not actually, it has not been the net gain that it was supposed to be, and there's an opportunity to change that in November that I strongly support, fix the fund. But there's, my son had just finished school yesterday.
Congrats.
Yes, he had 38 kids in his algebra class. And the teacher told me that was one of her smaller classes. And how is that setting him up for success? How is that setting her up for success? And so I feel plugged in, to things that are happening on the ground that matter to our kids and our community. And in the legislature, there's going to be a bill that's sort of top line bill next year, passed 15 years ago. Around trying to build a world-class education system in Maryland, but really update the K-12 law, and that is something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
I want to be part of that conversation as well.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, education definitely. I don't think you're a one-issue candidate at all, but I think that education is something that you're really passionate about, right?
Yes.
So, to be running for delegate in a state where Maryland had some of the best education in the country,
Yeah.
and now under the current the current executive administration,
Right.
it's dropped pretty significantly.
Yes, it has.
So, what do you think the answers are to get it to be a world-class education again
Yeah.
in Maryland?
Yeah. So, and that's exactly right. We were number one in the country under O'Malley, and his superintendent of public schools, Lillian Lowry. Actually, he was one of the first people to endorse me. We worked together when she was superintendent in Maryland. I also did some work with her through my job when she was superintendent of the public schools in Delaware. She's amazing. I'm not surprised we were number one under her.
Right.
But then we dropped to number 6. There's other reports that show us as number 11 in the country now.
Yeah, I heard
not
that
even
last
in
night.
The top 10.
I heard that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Even if we were number one again, and I hope we will be, and I will work for that, in the U.S., when you look at international comparisons, reading, math, and science, we're like, it's like 33, 35, and 38 or something in the world. And those like, I may be off by a number or two, but that's the range. And so, and what's happened is not that our schools are getting worse, it's that other countries are getting better, and we're not keeping pace.
Right.
And so one of the things that's been really interesting, so there have been about 2 years of hearings. There's a commission that's been looking at this. I've gone to a lot of their meetings, and they've brought in experts from across the country, and particularly some experts like Mark Tucker and Linda Darling Hammond, who spend a lot of time, she's a Stanford professor who spends a lot of time studying other countries and what they're doing right.
Right.
And so they've really tried to tap into that expertise, and they're so good. It's not rocket science, right? I mean, part of it is high standards. Part of it is really doing more to build and elevate the teaching profession. Part of it is around broadly expanding pre-K and early learning opportunities,
right.
which is something that I'm also very, very passionate about. There's tons of research out there that this is in terms of return on investment, is some of the best money we can spend as a society. It helps a kid the rest of their life. So there's a range of things. There's a special focus, the Kirwan Commission, that's the group looking at it. One of the things they're trying to do, and they've got 5 broad categories that they're looking at. One is really around helping at-risk students or marginalized students, and really focusing time, resources, nurture, care, social and emotional learning, but really getting away from the focus on some of the focus that's been very heavily on testing, and look at the whole child and look at what they're bringing with them to school. Particularly kids who are facing real obstacles
right.
in their lives. So it's been very heartening to hear some of those conversations, and to hear some of our legislators really wanting to focus in and double down on what we're doing for kids who have the least, to make sure they have the most. So, and I will also say, for people who are interested in learning more about the work of the Kirwan Commission and the legislation next year, there's an organization based in Baltimore called Strong Schools Maryland that has been following this and organizing groups of parents, teachers, grandparents, really anyone is welcome who
right.
is interested. But it's a very interesting model. But they send out monthly updates and then encourage us to get in touch with legislators and tell them we care, and to support efforts to really bring the change we need to our public schools.
Gotcha. One of the things that I wanted to ask you,
and the resources to go with
right,
that.
that's important. One of the things that I do want to ask you, education, like I said, seems to be a huge point of what you're looking to get right when you get in. But I do want to ask you this. Seems like politics are playing at their best during this election year in the community, and it's really unfortunate, because it even seems that in the Democratic Party here in Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, you have conflicts, right? You would think that would happen between Democrats and Republicans,
right.
But my question to you is, how, if we're already talking bad about each other or arguing and we're all Democrats, you guys, I'm sorry, not myself, you guys, you know, how do you expect to get anything done at a state level when you guys are delegates and senators? I mean, it actually, to be quite honest with you, as somebody who watches this and somebody who reports on it, it's like, I just feel like everybody needs to grow up. Like, it's to a point where it's ridiculous, and it's like,
rub your lips to God's ears.
Right. So like, how do I, as a person, for my viewers, trust anybody who's fighting with people within their own party to get anything done with people on the opposite side as well?
That is an excellent question. Glad you asked it. I forget who said it, but somebody smart at one point said, if you want to know how someone is going to govern, look at how they campaign.
Yeah.
And if you want to see what they're going to care about and focus on in the legislature, look at what they've done in all the years leading up to it. I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. And you know, I am very proud of the fact that I have run a positive campaign on my record, period. That's what this is about, making my case to the voters about why I think I'm the best person to do this job for the next 4 years. And I have had some, you know, sort of, I guess, a target on my back. I raised a lot of money early on from friends, family, teachers, public school teachers I've worked with over the years, colleagues on Capitol Hill, a lot of Obama-associated folks who I worked with in that administration. You know, who are all over the country now. A lot of them have left DC, but when they heard I was running, said, hey, you know, we know you're somebody who's going to always try to do the right thing, and we're going to support you.
Right.
But because I was so successful in doing that, it did kind of put a target on my back.
Right.
And unfortunately, there have been some things said, not by me, but misrepresentations of what I think about some policies. And, you know, I am trying to set the record straight there. To answer your question, at the end of the day, Democrats have much more that unites us than divides us. And I think we need to remember that, because every time a Democrat attacks someone in the Democratic family, we are weakening them, and the primary is going to be over in 10 days. And whether I am the one of the Democratic nominees or someone else is, at the end of the day, we need someone in the State House, in this seat, who, well, I've pledged, you know, to work for an F- from the NRA. I have pledged to work for an A+ from environmental groups. That's not what the current occupant of the seat has. When I say I want to flip the seat, he has an A from the NRA. He has a lifetime 50%, or, you know, in most schools that's an F from environmental groups. So this is, you know, this is not a game.
I hope in all schools that's an F. I hope.
This is not a game. This is about people's lives. It's about the air we breathe, the water we can swim or not swim in, drink or not drink. In some cases in our community, about schools that work for all our kids, and continuing to improve as the world around us changes, and as what the skills they need when they grow up. You know, we can't even imagine. You know, my kids are in middle school. The jobs that they may have one day may not have been invented yet, right? As technology keeps, if it's in the tech world, they'll be fine.
Right.
But this is serious stuff, and so it does. You know, it's when I think about this, I don't just think about me, and of course, it's horrible when, you know, somebody's out there saying, "Oh, Alice supports Betsy DeVos," when I, you know,
you were on TV a couple weeks ago,
protesting
when she came.
Yes, I organized parents to do that, I organized teachers to oppose her nomination. You know, back when she was going through her confirmation hearings. I've organized teachers. I work at a nonprofit called Teach Plus, working with public school teachers across the country, all effective teachers in high poverty schools.
Yeah.
They know she does not have the solutions. They want to fight that agenda. So that's a lot of what we do. But I've actually been fighting that agenda for decades. she is the new messenger, but
that agenda's been around.
The right-wing effort to privatize public education has been around really as long as I've been doing education policy.
Right.
And, I was the staffer on Capitol Hill when we had a Republican who was pushing really hard for this, probably 12 years ago. Like, I was the one writing the talking points opposing that agenda. And so it is, it's disheartening, it's hurtful when that attack is aimed at me, because I've given so much to fight that, and it's sort of the opposite. It reminds me when John Kerry ran for president, decorated war hero, and there was this organization, what was it, Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, that started calling him unpatriotic.
Right.
And it's like, it's a political ploy, right? And it's been around since the days of Lee Atwater. You take your opponent's strength, if your opponent has a great strength, and you try to turn it into a weakness. And it's politics at its worst. We've seen a lot of it on the national stage.
Even worse that it's between two people in the same party.
And when that, so yes, that does make it worse.
Right.
But I do think, it is what people hate about politics. It's certainly, for me personally, the worst part of the race is, if I knock on a door and somebody says, "Oh, you're that person." Well, actually, let's talk.
Right, yeah, right.
But to have to constantly do that, I don't think that's what people are looking for in politics. I know it's not what they're looking for. And honestly, I think voters see through it. And I've had as many people say to me, "Oh, you're that person," before I set the record straight, as I've had people say to me, "Oh, honey, I see what they're doing to you. That is horrible.
Yeah.
You go, girl. And while I'm here, let me give you another contribution. Or can I make some phone calls for you?" So in some ways, it's actually mobilizing people
right.
who do see through it to get more involved. But at the end of the day, it's you don't run for office, or you shouldn't run for office unless you have thick skin.
Right.
I support Democratic candidates. I support Democratic values, and I support public service that has a foundation or underpinning of integrity. And I was so lucky in my first job on Capitol Hill. I volunteered on Paul Simon's presidential campaign in 1988. He was a statesman, and he truly was someone who used his power for the common good, always tried to do the right thing. He always, he said, it's amazing how much you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
And he lived that out. And so I saw politics, it's a long time ago, not so far away, but I saw it functioning well. And I was part of a process where we did get things done, working across the aisle, and putting the common good first. And so I know it's possible. And so part of what this is about for me is sort of, as someone who has seen it and lived it and experienced it, trying to bring that back.
Right.
And the it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country,
right,
or for your community. And probably the best part of this whole campaign experience, you talked about the worst. That was the bows and arrows, few scars, battle scars. But I'm not going to sink to that. Michelle Obama says, they go low, we go high.
Right.
And I would rather lose going high and being able to sleep at night than to go to sink to that level. But the best part of this whole experience is just, I've met so many amazing people in our community who are giving so much of themselves, and a lot of it's behind the scenes. I never heard of some of these organizations,
right,
because they're out there doing the work. They're not out there blasting it from the rooftops, trying to take the credit. They are just really trying to help and get things done. And so getting to and meeting so many people and just seeing the goodness and the generosity and the concern for leaving a better future for our kids and grandkids, and the spirit, I guess, of Annapolis. I've lived here almost a decade, and I thought I was really involved, right? Between the PTAs and youth group leader at my church and Annapolis Education Commission, and my husband is very, very involved in foul baseball.
Right, yeah, you were telling me.
6 days a week, he's coaching 2 teams, he was commissioner. Like, I thought I knew our community well, but I've gotten to know it at such a different level.
Right.
And just seeing the spirit of this place, it makes me so proud. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I will give you one example. And you said Chris went on for 35 minutes, so I'm not quite there yet, right?
Yeah, right. We're not quite there yet.
But I'll tell you one thing that made me so proud. The time I was probably most involved in local politics was shortly after Trump got elected, and he was talking about building the wall, you know, and all the horrible things. I won't even say them. But there was an effort to, coming out of the mayor's office, to make our community less immigrant and refugee friendly, and to have police officers ask for documentation more regularly, even if someone was trying to help them solve a crime.
Right.
And I thought that was a step in the wrong direction, and especially with the backdrop of everything that was coming out of DC.
Right.
Did not want our neighbors in Annapolis to feel the hatred. I wanted them to feel the love, right? So I got involved. Jared Littman, who was then alderman, and Mark Rodriguez, who is now alderman for that seat, joined forces and put together a non-discrimination ordinance to make our community more welcoming, not less welcoming.
To our immigrant community.
To our immigrant community.
Right.
And so, I testified, I organized other parents to testify, but I have never been more proud of Annapolis. This is on my Facebook page. It was standing room only at one of the city council meetings where this came up. You could not get in the door because so many people showed up to show solidarity and to do the right thing.
Right.
And that, it gave me chills. I was like, yes, this, I have never been more proud.
Made you realize what you really can do.
Of my adopted hometown for us standing up that way. And then we elected an immigrant.
An immigrant as mayor, yeah.
The next election.
Buckley, yeah.
And I'm proud of that too.
Right.
So I feel a lot of like-minded, kindred spirits, people who care, people who get involved. And that's the best part of this whole thing. Win or lose, next Tuesday, I am a better person for having had this opportunity and having all those stories and all those conversations with so many amazing people in our community.
Well, her name is...
I wouldn't have gotten to know you either.
Right, yes.
So there we go.
It's awesome. Her name is Alice Cain, and education is definitely the game because education and knowledge is power. Make sure you guys get out to the polls and vote. How can people get in touch with your campaign and learn more about you?
www.alicejcain.com is my website. That's probably the best place. Also, Alice Cain for Delegate Facebook page.
Facebook, yeah.
And I have a crowd pack page as well, so take your pick.
Alrighty, guys. The primary elections are on June 26th, and early voting has already started. My name is Joseph Omo for the Arundel Patriot, and make sure you check out all of our other interviews with all of our other candidates on thearundelpatriot.org. Thanks.